Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone. And today, hold on to your seat because you're going to need some box of tissues because we're going to be talking to my beautiful guest, Kayla Leon. She is a living proof that you are not your diagnosis. You are your dreams. Kayla Leon is an international best-selling, award-winning children's book who transformed challenges into magic and pain into purpose. Diagnosed with a rare, incurable condition at just 22, Kayla chose not to be defined by her illness, but to rise with grace, with imagination, and with an unshakable belief of what's possible. Through her vibrant stories and soul-led mission, she reminds us that healing is more than physical. It's a creative, spiritual, deep, personal journey. Please join me in welcoming a true spark of hope, light, and limitless potential. Kayla Leon, welcome to Spark and Change. Gigi?
Thank you so much, and what a beautiful welcome. Like you had me in some goosebumps. So I'm really, really grateful to be here today, and thank you again. What a beautiful thing that you're doing to help others to share experiences. So thank you, Gigi. I'm so grateful to be here with you.
And we're definitely grateful that you're here. And we do definitely share very similar stories, but again, you and I both are like the hope to inspire others to understand that a diagnosis doesn't define who we are. So can you share with the audience a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It would give me great pleasure. So a little bit about me. When I was I guess I was probably about 19 years old. I really started noticing impacts in my body. I started noticing things that weren't normal, feeling sick, feeling unwell, and I couldn't explain it. I would go see many, many different doctors and I would get different diagnoses, but nobody was ever really able to tell me what was going on physically with my body and mentally as well. At that time, because of what was going on with my body and where I was in my life, I was not doing well mentally or physically. And so at around 22 years old, I was diagnosed with a very rare genetic condition called Gaucher disease. And this disease is so rare that it's like 1 in a million chances of catching it. You have to have two genetic chromosomes that combine together through your parents that give you the disease. And so when the doctor told me about it, he sat me down in the room and he sat me on the table and he goes, I have to tell you what you have. And I'm thinking, oh God, like it's cancer, it's this, it's, what is it? And he goes, it's this rare genetic disease that I don't know. He's like, I don't know how to treat. Like, I don't know much about it. He's like, I have as much information as anybody else could gather off the internet. And he hands me a stack of papers this wide and he gives them to me and he says, this is it. Like, this is all I can do for you. I
Wow.
left that hospital, like, feeling completely like I just remember bawling outside of the hospital, like, on the front area and thinking, like, What am I gonna do?" Like, I had a little boy, I had a 2-year-old at the time, and I was like, "What am I gonna do for him? Like, how am I gonna be able to be there for him and be the mom when I received this diagnosis that I thought my life was over?" I thought it was done, and I remember that night, like, I told my husband, I told people, but it was like everything was a blur, and I was sitting in the bathtub, and I was running the tub, and I was thinking, "I just wanna die. Like, I don't wanna be here. Like, I don't wanna be." And so it was such an overwhelming, consuming feeling,
Yes.
within that moment when you find something out like that, a diagnosis like that, that it's incurable, that they don't know what to do, that you're kind of, you know, a deer in headlights. Nobody has an idea how to cure you. Where do you even start with that? Like, am I terminal? Is this the end for me? Like,
Yeah.
I have a child, like, and so that's where the journey began for me. And I remember like thinking, my son, my son, my son, and that image just kept coming back. What am I going to do for him? How am I going to be there for him? And so I had a very proactive mother. She is a wonderful spirit. And she started researching and looking up all these things. And I started researching, and we ended up finding a clinic in Toronto, Canada, who treat rare genetic diseases such as Gaucher disease. And we went there, and they ran some tests, and they diagnosed me properly, and they said, it's a private clinic, but we'll do what we can for you, and we'll get you on treatment, and you're healthy and you're a young mom. And they took all those factors into account, and I started receiving treatment. But when I started receiving the treatment, I was allergic to it. So my body was rejecting it. And I was going into, like, I would pass out from the pain. So it was just like one thing after the other with this disease, and I didn't understand it. And you know, I had the wonderful opportunity of having Peggy McCall in my life. And at the time, like when I was really going through this, I didn't understand the material that she was teaching. I was fascinated with it, manifestation and living from the end. I was really fascinated with the material, but I didn't really follow it. I didn't really apprehend it and like let it, into my subconscious. And I was in a little bit of a phase of woe is me, like I can't believe I have this, like what am I going to do? And then I was riding my bicycle one morning, and it kind of like hit me. It like hit me like a bolt of lightning, like I can't stay in this mindset. Like I can't stay
Right.
here and allow myself to be sick. And at the time, my body was rejecting the treatments. I was driving to Toronto every 2 weeks, every week to receive treatment. And I said, I'm gonna change this outcome for myself. I'm gonna change this for my family and for the way that we live. And so I started applying the material. I started applying like manifestation. I started really like saturating my mind. I started listening to Peggy. I started listening to Bob. I started listening to a little ounce of material, like anything in here that could help me thrive. And I started changing and adjusting things in my life. I started realizing that the more I studied, the more I applied, the more I was seeing positive changes and outcomes in my life. And I started getting used to the treatment, and things were going well for me, and I started feeling a little bit better, and I started noticing these shifts, right? So then I was automatically like hooked. I was like, oh, like this stuff really works.
Right. It's your inner belief system, right? Like you literally had to like switch your thinking from what I don't want to what I do want.
Exactly. I was living like from programming that I previously had, like from generations that was, embedded inside of me, that when you're sick, you act sick. When you're diagnosed, you act your diagnosis. And this was something that was so embedded into my subconscious mind that I was actually making myself much more sick than I realized at the time. And I feel like people do that. People naturally do that. They don't intend to do it, but it's their programming, right? That makes them do this.
Right. We're on autopilot 95% of our 95% of our time, right? Whatever we're thinking, it's a program that we have that brings out that thinking. So, I can share, and it's so deeply felt in my heart because the same thing happened to me with a cancer diagnosis, right? We know what they say, if you have it, you're going to die. And
Mhm.
you take those words and you literally, if you embody them, your cells will act like if you're dying, like you have no energy because all you're thinking about, like you say, is what they told you. And you had to
Yeah.
switch that at like inside, like literally self-talk and say, no, I'm not that. No, that's not going to happen. No, I'm going to be well. I'm
Yeah.
sure that is what you did to navigate your journey to a healthy state, right?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. So I was applying the teachings and I was doing the material and I was doing the things, right? I was doing what I was reading and what I was taught to do. But I remember even like as a young girl, like if somebody were to tell me, you can't do this or, this doesn't function that way, but like, oh, let me prove you wrong, like
Right.
I
Right.
had that angst and I had it in me. Like I was always somewhat like that person, but I still wasn't living from the end. I still wasn't living from the vibration to really be healthy, to really feel good, to really live, the passionately driven person, the creative person I knew I was. I was still working in a dental clinic and I was working, hard hours. I remember dividing my time to going for treatment, trying to exercise and bike to work, and then come home and take care of my kid and do the 9 to 5 thing. And I was doing all of that, and I was burning myself out. I was burning myself out, and then you know and I do not say that this is a message from the universe or that it was a blessing in disguise. I will never say that about this situation. But something had like something come like changed everything for me.
Right.
And we were trying to sell our house. I was trying to live as if, right? We were trying to sell our house. We put our house up for sale and we are like, oh, we'll move and we'll do all the right things. And we had like 60 visits on our home at the time, not one sale. Okay. People came in and out of our home. We would text a real estate agent. I think she started ghosting me because she didn't want to tell me that, there was no offers that day. She just kept trying to shut it down on us and have faith, have faith, have faith, and I remember feeling frustrated because I was like, I'm doing all the things, I'm living from the steps. Like, why isn't this working for me? Why aren't I manifesting it? And I was still living from a toxic environment, from a toxic belief. And then my son and I went for a bicycle ride, and he was 7 years old. And it was a long bike ride. We had a wonderful day, came home, did our normal routine, watched a movie. And in the middle of the night, my son started vomiting. And I was like, "Okay," and I remember my husband, like, came in too, and we put him in the shower and, we rinsed him off, and for some weird reason, I asked my son to brush his teeth that night. I don't know why. Like, it was 3 in the morning. Why would you ask your child to brush their teeth at 3 in the morning after they were sick? Usually, you would just put them back to bed. And he wasn't able to physically like let out the saliva, okay? And so then we put him into his bed and I looked at my son and I said, "James, tell me you love me, tell me you love me." And he looks at me and he goes, and he wasn't able to talk. And so my husband and I took him and we put him in the car and we rushed him to the hospital. And I remember we're calling the ambulance. I have James on me in the back of the car. I have the seatbelt wrapped around us, and I'm on the phone with 911, and he's like fading fast. Like his whole body just was like numb. Like
Wow.
everything stopped working. And I'm on the phone with a hospital, like with 911, and I'm like, telling my husband, pull over, pull over, pull over. Like they can't find us if you're driving. And a cop ended up pulling us over. He knew instantly that something was wrong. He went to the back and he, was putting the flashlight in my son's hand and he said, "James, respond, respond." And there was nothing. And the ambulance came and they took my son and they put him in the ambulance and they left with him. They didn't even give me the opportunity to get in. Like, they just left with him, and by the time I got to the hospital, James was hooked up to all these machines, and they had already intubated him, and he was having a full brain seizure. It's very rare that a child's full brain will stop functioning, and so he was having a seizure, and I was on the phone, with Peggy and all my mother-in-laws and telling them to come, and they were coming to the hospital, and they knew the severity of the situation when, like, I ran out of the room and I was physically sick to my stomach because of what was happening with my son. And, um, James was in a coma for multiple days, and they ran every test on him, every single test. And they ran, like infectious testing and, if he got bit by a bug, ticks, like anything. They couldn't figure out what was going on with his brain. And 3 days in, I'm sitting by his bedside and like I'm devastated. Like I can't even talk to anybody or, my husband as well. And I remember just like sending a message out there being like, take my life and save his, because as a mom, that's what you do. Like as a mom, you'll do anything for your babies, right? And I remember saying that to myself. I was like, do whatever you need to do, but save my baby, save my baby. And I heard a voice and it says like change your life, and I don't know where it came from. And I took it very seriously. And then 4 days in, they said, Kayla, we're going to wake him up. Okay. And we don't know if he'll be brain dead and we don't know if he'll wake up. We don't know if he'll have any memory of you. We don't know anything, but we're praying that he wakes up. And so that day they, took him off of the life support and were trying to wake him up. And he woke up within the hour. And he was confused and it was hard, but he woke up. He woke up and he looked at me, and that is when everything in my life changed. That was my turning point, and that is the story that I often don't share
Mhm.
because it is so much. It is so much to share. And I knew at that moment that, everything that I was feeling about my diagnosis, everything that I was feeling about, my life not being the way it was, all of that disappeared. All
Right.
of that disappeared. And it was like, I am taking control of my life. I am shifting gears. I'm going to, do everything and start living from the end. Um, you know, we got home probably 3 days later. I called a real estate agent at 4 in the morning and I said, book me 3 houses to go visit. Two in which I knew my husband would hate, one I knew he would love. And I said, we're going to live from the end result. We're no longer going to live from the process, right? The process was you sell your home and then you get the house.
Right.
No, I was living from the end now. We went and seen a home. We fell in love with it. It's the one I'm in now. We put an offer in. We relisted our house. We sold it within 3 days. We had, I think we had a bidding war of 6 offers. Why? What was the difference from what it was before to what it is now? It was the same house, the same price, the absolute same. There was
Yeah.
no difference from then to now. The only difference was me. The difference was me, my mindset, the way I functioned, the way I was thinking, the way I wanted things, the actions I was taking. And that was the difference. Well, we sold our house and we moved within a month and we moved to the country. And then I started noticing the shifts, right? The things happening. And so then go ahead. Go ahead. I'll
No,
let
I
you.
was just going to say you chose hope and imagination over fear and limitations, basically. Like you totally
100%.
shifted your thinking to the opposite. And not only did you work from the end, but you had to give yourself that talk
Hmm.
constantly in your mind saying, this is where we need to be. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And stay strong to that, regardless of what you saw. Because when you do have life altering changes, it does impact you to the core of your being. Like it tells you you must change. And
Hmm.
so, you listened. I listened. I'm here because I listened. You're where you are because you listened. And so today, I mean, oh my goodness, we got the good part to come to, all the good stuff you're doing. But go ahead. Go ahead. I love the story.
And it's such a story that, like, for me, it's not one that I share very often. So to be able to share it here with you and with everyone, so I wasn't going to share that story about my son, but something within me was drawn to share it because I felt that there was a disservice in not sharing it because that was truly the turning point in my life. And when I started seeing the shifts and when I started seeing the things happen for me. And, there's just another example of this when I was, so now we have the house, we have to move. And I was driving this Lexus IS 300, which I don't know if there's any car people on here, but it's just like a little like speed car, a little fast thing. And I decided that, it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for my son and I to be driving on the country roads with, and it wasn't what I wanted. So I said, you know what, I'm going to apply the principles that I learned, and I'm going to manifest the vehicle I always dreamed about having. And the vehicle I always dreamed about having was this Toyota Tacoma truck. Okay. I remember when I was like 13 and I was painting houses with my dad, we'd drive by the dealership and I'd be like, yeah, you see that truck? And I tell my brother, I'm like, you see that? I'm going to buy that. And he'd be like, oh, like, yeah, okay. Cause they're relatively expensive. He'd be like, yeah, okay. And I remember thinking, money is abundantly out there. Like Bob used to say, it's in the universe for you to receive, right? If you're open to it. And so I walk into the Toyota dealership and I'm like in there and I'm walking tall and I said, I'm here to buy a vehicle. Like not a question of, I might buy a vehicle. I'm here. No, I'm here to purchase a vehicle today. And that's what I'm here to do. And so this salesperson, they come up to me and he's like, perfect. Like, allow me to take you to the minivans on the side of the building. And I was like, excuse me? And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, like the SUVs, and like that's what you're here to buy. And so I played along and I walked with him, and I looked at and I said, what do you have in your showroom? And he's like, in my showroom. I'm like, yeah, like, like in the middle, you always like display, like when I walked in, I was like, these vehicles that are displayed in the center of the room. And he's like, okay. And so we walk into the center of the room and there it is, this beautiful Toyota Tacoma. It's like a machine gray and it's fully loaded. It has everything in it. It's like the safest vehicle. And I look at him and I said, I'm going to take that. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, and I'll take a different salesman too. I remember him being like, sorry. And I was like, yeah, like, and so, I already knew the deal was done for me. Like, that's the vehicle I was getting. I wasn't thinking about where the money was going to come from. I just knew that that is the vehicle that I wanted. I was living from the end result of having it. And so, we go back later that evening and I purchased the truck and I was approved and I got the vehicle and everything was done and I had a different salesman and the salesman goes, I just want to say, like, I don't know what you said to the previous guy, but he threw in some free tires and some extra things for you.
Wow.
And I walked out of that dealership with with the keys in my hand, my brand new vehicle. And I remember the feeling that I had, and it was the feeling of perfectly being aligned. It had nothing to do with, like, there wasn't that, oh my God, I can't believe I just did this. It was, I knew I was going to do this. I knew I was going to get what I wanted, in the sense of I was going after it not because I, was thinking from, I get what I want perspective, but I was thinking from, I deserve this. I
Yes.
deserve this because of what I've been through. We deserve this because of what you go through. You deserve to have everything you want and desire in your life. And I was living from that deserving moment. And so, I still have the truck. I
Okay.
haven't given it to my baby.
What a story. What a story. That salesman must have really learned a great lesson from you, right? You'll probably never do it again. But I love the fact that you stood your grounds. You knew what I wanted. And it's that knowing, that deep knowing that there's nothing that's going to disturb or interfere because you are so um, stuck to what you want, regardless of what, that salesman said, where he took you, and you knew it was going to happen. And when you know something's going to happen and you trust the unseen, basically, because that's what you did. You went in there, just you knew what you were going to do, regardless of what, you didn't even know the truck was there. You just knew you're going to go buy that truck today. And you knew it was going to be on the floor in the showroom. I just love that because you can apply that to other things
Mhm.
in life. And I'm sure you have.
Yes. Yeah, I have to. moving forward to everything in my life, like
Mhm.
everything in my life. And one of the beautiful things, one of the things that, I do now for work is that I get to live in that environment every single day, and I get to be with wonderful people like yourself, and wonderful people like Peggy McCall and wonderful people like this, and I get to live from that every single day, and it's life changing. And there's never a time in your life when you cannot there's never a time in your life when you will not be able to switch. You can always switch. And you can always head on the path that you truly desire, what you truly are passionate about. Like there will always be that moment for you. A lot of people believe that they're closed off. A lot of people believe that it's not there for them. It's always going to be available to you when you're ready to receive it. Like, that's the truth, and you know this. She's like, when you're ready to receive it, it'll be available to you, and it'll come to you, and you'll feel it, and you'll feel the alignment, and it's such a wonderful thing. I had a conversation with somebody today, and they were asking me, "How do you know?" But it's always a question you get, right? How do you know when you're aligned with something? How do you know when you're on that vibration, How do you know? And you know when you feel it.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know when it's every single part of your body radiates it. From your tips of your toes to your fingertips, you are radiating that feeling, that vibration. It is there. You are worthy of it and you know it. You are living from the end. And that's when you know. Because a lot of people say here, or a lot of people say here, but they don't get there. And that's because they don't believe in their worth yet. They
Yeah.
don't believe in their worth yet.
Absolutely. I love that you're saying that because it's it's understanding that we are a gift. We come to this world, we are the gift to help others. And yes, we're going to have these challenges in life and it's going to test us. But it's again staying to truth to who we are, understanding that we are worthy to receive everything, right? And what dictates that we're not, or what makes us feel that we're not, it's our past experiences, right? We're either looking at the
Yeah.
past or we're looking at the future. I have this thing right here that I always remind myself, right? This was Bob used to do, right? It's like, okay, let's turn this upside down. And, the past is what's coming down. The future, we have no idea. But all we have is this present moment right here, right in the middle. And at any time, we can switch and say, I choose, intentionally choose, I'm going to have a better life. I'm going to go after that car, or I'm going to do this, and believe that you deserve it. Because,
Mhm.
again, it comes down to, are we feeling worthy enough to receive everything, whatever it is that we
Yeah.
want? And it's, we're looking on the outside, we're comparing, we're saying, I'm not good enough. Oh, they can have it. Oh, I'm not like her. I'll never be like her. Right? Why not? Why not? I mean, if I really wanted to be, I mean, I don't know how to swim, but if I wanted to go compete in swimming, I mean, I can go take lessons and work really hard and, maybe get a medal, one or two. But I don't choose to do that because I don't want to go in that direction. But I can do it, then nothing stops me but me. I always say we're the ones who put the brakes on. We're the ones who can take our foot off the pedal and we can put our foot on the brakes. And we need to stop looking on the outside because we have everything that we need. The strength is within us to get us to where
Mhm.
we go. And that's what you did. You took your courage, your strength, and you said, I'm going to make a different story for myself. I'm going to rewrite my story. And you did. So I'm going to take a short commercial break and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the lovely stuff that you're doing, how you're impacting lives, how you're sparking change. So we'll be right back. A quick commercial. Quick enough. So
Yeah.
so let's talk about the work that you're doing and how you're not only impacting, the next generation, but dreamers and creators to really take the next step in going after what they really want.
So, as you were speaking earlier, like thoughts were just intuitively kind of flowing through me because I was thinking about what you said, like how, you know, our generation, like our belief system, and when we become adults, and like how we have, these lingering thoughts, like these thoughts of these paradigms, as they typically call them, of how I'm not worthy enough or how they can have it and I can't, and these things. And I told you this recently that I truly have a belief system inside of me that when you become an adult, you are responsible for your life. And a lot of people will say that, but it is no longer your parents' responsibility. It is no longer their responsibility to treat your outcomes. Like your outcome in life has nothing to do with them anymore. And a lot of people might feel something about that because they'll relate back to that saying, there's resistance there. Like, no, it's their fault. It's their fault I am the way I am. It's their fault I have this programming. When you become an adult, you have everything within you to change that. Every resource, every little bit of knowledge, whether it be to study every single day, whether it be to, get help for the traumas that you've experienced, whether it be to make a decision to be somebody completely new and different. You have everything within you
That's
to
right.
become a brand new person. If only you believed it and you stopped telling yourself that everything in your life is somebody else's fault. Everything within you when you become an adult is your responsibility. And Bob Proctor would say, it is up to you to change your life. It is your responsibility to do this. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, and this was coming to me because I was thinking about, the conversation that I had with my son recently, and how he was saying, Mom, like, why is it the way that it is? Like, why does it have to be this way where I sit in a classroom and I'm stuck to a chair and I'm learning material that I have zero interest in, and that isn't pulling me in the direction of life in which I wish to go. And the words even coming out of my mouth, like even coming out of my mouth to say to him, it is the way it is. It's just is. It's always been. It felt foolish to say those things. I felt foolish to say that to my son because this isn't the world. This isn't the truth. It isn't the truth that you can make a decision. Like you can, and this happens to a lot of kids, is that they'll go their whole life through school and have no idea what they want to do with their future because they were never taught from like a young age. Like they were told they can do anything, yes, but then they're taught that they have to be restricted. Then they're taught that they have to do this. Then they're taught that they have to know what they want to do when they get out of high school, and then what they want to do when they become in college, and that they have to choose a path, one path. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, you do not have to choose one path. You do not have to choose one path. Your whole life can change. Your life can change in a day, in a second, in a minute. It can change.
I remember Bob
And
say, teach your kids how to make decisions. Sorry to interrupt, but teach them
no,
how
go
to
ahead.
make decisions because kids are not taught how to decide in school. They're told what to do, how to do it, when to. And being a teacher, I did that. I'm guilty of it. To say that they didn't have an opportunity to be creative, to come up with ideas. Um,
Exactly.
and now,
Exactly.
and your son is feeling it. Your son is questioning, like, is it really? This is the way it's supposed to be? I think the future will bring a great change into the school system because many kids are feeling the restrictions that, they're speaking up. They're speaking up. And the work that we do helps them to also understand that they're here for a greater purpose,
And
right?
it helps them understand that they can speak up, that they have the ability to do so. And it's interesting you should, because it's not the teachers. Like that's the other thing is we're always looking for the finger to blame. They're always like, oh, it's the teacher's fault that they're not learning this way. It's the teacher. The teachers, it's not their fault. They
Yeah,
have a curriculum that they are given that they have to teach. Like
that's
that is their job. It's like when you work in the any job, like you have to follow a certain depending on what
highlight.
you do.
Mhm.
And so teachers are in the same position. A lot of them do not feel that. And I know from them talking to me about it. So a little bit like you had mentioned, like we want to hear like your beautiful story and what you do. So I'm an author and I write children's books. And this is my children's book. It's called What a Mess Kid. And it's all about my son James. Like, he's my creative masterpiece, my inspiration, and it's all about this little boy and his creative mind and his imagination. And from the time that James was a very young child, I could tell that there was something authentically special about him. Like, he had this brilliant, brilliant mind. He was fascinated with things that most people would kind of brush aside. I remember we would go to people's houses and he would listen to the plumbing in the wall. Like, he was like, "Do you hear that? Like, do you hear the way that the plumbing functions?" And he would make you go to the basement, and he would make you, show you the mechanical room and how everything functions. So he has a mechanical brain. It's very apparent. Like, he functions by doing, right? He functions by doing. He has like a mechanical brain. And so James is very special. And he started going to school, and I was aware of his ADHD. Like, as a mom,
Mhm.
when your kid, and I never saw it as a bad thing, because it isn't a bad thing. I never saw it as a bad thing. A lot of people will say, "Oh, they're distracted and they're not paying attention and their heads in the clouds and it's hard to teach them." Of course it's hard to teach them,
Yeah.
because there's so many of them in a classroom, and you're trying to divide your focus, and
Right.
there's one child that his focus isn't there because he's not interested in the material that he's learning. And a child with ADHD doesn't have the creative space to be able to do the things that he wants to do, to
Right.
learn the way that he wants to learn. And so I wrote this story because I had a message to deliver. And that message was that we need to celebrate creativity and imagination. And
Yeah.
that if you give kids a safe environment, a loving environment, the space to be messy, the space to be creative, they're going to thrive.
Yeah, it brings to mind the story about this kid who, couldn't keep his hands to himself. Like, he would be tapping on the desk constantly and he'd be sent to the principal's office. I forget the name of the story, but it was touching when I heard it. And he kept doing this every day, and every day he was going to the principal's office. And then one day, I believe it was the gym teacher or something, or no, I think it was the principal who said, "Okay, that's it. Come here." He opened up his drawer and he gave him a pair of drumsticks. And he became
Mm,
the best drummer. I don't know who it is, but when I heard the story, so, you know, to your point, being creative and let the children be creative. They have this great imagination that can really open up to the impossibilities. Like, he became a famous drummer. But think about if the opposite would have happened, where
mm.
sometimes, no, the principal didn't have the drumsticks, right? They called the parents in, and the parents felt bad, and the parents punished the kid. And now his whole self-esteem is messed up because, all he was trying to do was be himself,
Yeah.
be himself. And so that experience can make or break a child. I always say teachers can make or break a child. I really feel that, being an educator, that I can say you can take a child that you think, I mean, I taught kids with autism, right? And
Mm.
I was a science teacher. I don't know how they gave me that position because I hated science and social stuff. I got that position, and I remember, my first year teaching, I put robes on, white robes. I used to be an esthetician, and so I had the white gowns, as an esthetician, and I would put that on. I had so many left over. I brought them to the classroom. I put them on the kids. I brought them goggles. Like, my kids looked like scientists. You did not come into my room until you looked like a scientist, and they all knew that. And these were kids with autism. And you think they can't learn? I gave them an opportunity to identify land and water with graham crackers, with blue icing and green icing, and with goldfish and kisses to make the mountains and the fish. And they had to place them on, and then they ate it. It was such a beautiful lesson. I still have that lesson because there's nothing that anybody cannot do, regardless of what they're labeled with. And
Mhm.
that is the thing, like, we need to really open up our hearts to understand we give a label to something. And when we give a label to something, we restrict it. We put it in a box. you're diabetic, so you cannot have sugar. You're diabetic and you can't do this and you can't do that. And so
Mm-hmm.
and lift that label and say, you know what, let me just try to find things that do work for me versus I can't do this, I can't do that, I have this, I have that. And I'm sorry, those are just excuses that keep you where you don't want to be,
Mm-hmm.
keep
Yeah.
you locked down, right? And not to live life authentically and be yourself.
Well, do you know where those excuses come from? They come from the belief in which is put upon them. They come from a belief in which people are telling you that you cannot do this. Like if we rewind just a little bit and we come back to my health, like I was told, like, so my diagnosis for Gaucher disease wasn't my first diagnosis ever. Like when I was a young child, I also had two back surgeries. I had a tumor in my back, and I remember parents telling me, you can't do this, you can't go swimming, you can't go skating, you can't go skiing. Basically, I couldn't do anything that I loved. I
Yeah.
was eliminated. I was in a body brace. I wasn't allowed to function, to move properly. And so right there comes the limiting beliefs, right? That like I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it because that's what I heard. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. And that's the same thing with kids. Like they're going to hear that, right? They're going to hear, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't fly to the moon. You can't do this. And so what I was trying to fully embrace, like with, the story, was that you can do anything if you're given the space to create something. Like we tend to lose, and it's funny because in the manifestation world, as you know this, like we always come back to the imagination. We always come back to what it is you have to do to imagine the things that you desire and then live from the point as if it's already done. And kids are doing that already.
Yes.
But what we're doing is we're squashing it down. We're telling them, stop daydreaming, stop imagining, focus on this. And we're telling them to stop it. And then when we become adults and we're saying, what are you doing? Imagine, believe, create, and do those things. So it's just like reverse, psychology, like they're confused. And so my goal is to really help, teachers, parents, kids have an understanding that having that creative space, having the ability to create, to be imaginative, to go after the things you want, there is no label. As you said, there's no label. There's no label on ADHD. There's no label on autism. Like, yes, it's there, and it's to have a better understanding and to know how to cater better to them, to really know how to. But it's not a problem. It is not a bad thing. It is something of beauty. It's what sets them apart. It's what makes them individual. It's what makes them unique. So what are we doing? What are we doing to give them that, to give them that safe space? And that's really, what my children's book does. And I've had so many kids who are on the spectrum, who are neurodiverse, reach out to me and tell me how much they love it and tell me how much it's changed their life for the better. And that to me is like, God, I better get moving on the next one, 'Cause
Right. It
so
brings life, right, to the ones who thought that maybe, they're destined to live a life of unpleasant, or, a journey of that's not conducive to living happy. But here it
Mhm,
is. What you shared today is you determine your happiness. You are
mhm,
in charge of your happiness. If you don't take control and you expect something else to make you happy or someone else to make you happy, anything outside of us, because happiness is a state of mind. It's our
mhm,
state of mind that we can say, you know what, I choose to do this today. And
mhm,
when you take control of your thoughts and your thinking, and you make a commitment to yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're not doing it for anybody else, but fulfilling your desires, because it's your gift that you're sharing. Your desires are your gifts that you're going to share with everyone else. So your desire of writing children books to share your experience. And there's I mean, Halava, and I keep saying this in every show because I can't, take it out of my mind, when she goes, we have gold stored inside of us, and we do. And we do.
mm,
It's just we don't, we've not tapped into that. We're looking for outside to give us what we need. And we have it all within us. You've taken a life-threatening diagnosis and you're like, okay, I get it. I understand I have this, but let me tell you, it's not going to stop me from living. And I've done the
Mm.
same thing, right? It's like, okay, I got to take care of my kids. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm staying. Just tell me what I need to do and let's move on. Because when you let something outside of you control inside of you, then that's where you're feeling lost. You don't know what to do
Absolutely.
because you're counting on something outside of you to make you better. You've literally talk about sparking change. Like you transformed from here it is, you're giving me a diagnosis. I'm telling you, I'm changing the world with my books. Like, how does that happen without you intentionally saying, I'm not going anywhere. I got a job to do here. I'm going to take care of my son. I'm going to share this, journey with others. And you had no idea, I'm sure, the impact that you're making.
I I can't say that I have an idea of the impact I'm making, but I hope that it's making the right one. I hope, and I believe it deep inside of me that I'm here for a purpose to do that. Um, you know, you touch back on the disease, and it's really interesting because you're right. And it's sometimes I forget it. I think I forgot it talking through this show that I have it. You forget because I do not allow it to consume me. I do not allow it to eat me. Instead, I tell myself every single day that I'm happy and I'm healthy and my body is healthy and what am I doing for it? And so and it's funny because people who know me, I am sure forget that I have it, to be honest. Sometimes I'll get a text message and what are you doing today, Kayla? Oh, I'm just at treatment. And they're like, treatment. Oh yeah, treatment. And they forget that I have the diagnosis that I have. So um, to go into a little bit more deep, like I go every 2 weeks for treatment. It's intravenous treatment. It's the same treatment you would receive if you were going to get chemo treatments. It's different than chemo, but it's the same treatment. And I go every 2 weeks, and I call it my liquid gold, like my magic juice. So I right there changed the dynamic of it. Like before it looked, oh, that's toxic stuff and it's harming me. Now I look at it as it's my liquid gold. It's going into my body and it's only producing good results and it's only making me feel better and better every single day. And I know from personal experience, like there's somebody who has the same diagnosis as me, and we live completely different lives. And how is it possible for two people to have the same diagnosis, the same disease, doing the same things to their body, and have two very different outcomes? Well, I'd like to believe that it's because I have control over my mind. I like to believe that it's because I feed and fuel myself with the stuff that I need to be the person that I wish to be. I focus on the health part. I focus on eating right. I focus on exercising every single day. I don't miss a day. And I eat well every single day and I fuel my body and I tell myself, and it all starts with the mind. It all starts with the belief system so deep embedded within me that I am healthy. So if you were to ask me today, Kayla, do you have a diagnosis? Like, are you sick? I would tell you no. Yes, I have a rare genetic disease, a Gaucher disease, but am I sick? No,
Because you're
because
in
I am.
the past. You're not going to that diagnosis when you were first diagnosed, right? You're not going to the times when you had to, you felt very sick and where you could have
Exactly.
done something on it. You're staying in the present moment. That's why right now, this moment, you don't feel the diagnosis. And you're
No.
not thinking about the future because you're in the present moment enjoying this particular show right now and sharing your story. So we have the power to do that. We have the power to stay in the present moment. But it's a choice that you've made. You're intentionally saying, yes, this is where it feels good. It doesn't feel good going in the past. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel good thinking about the future because I don't even know if I'm going to be alive 10 years from now, right? Be right here and share the joy and the love that we are feeling out to the world because this is how we're going to get it back, right?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to understand that this is just about learning, probably unlearning what we've learned all along, and then relearning the way it should be, the way we should feel, and the way we should have control over, what we want and feel more powerful versus powerless.
Absolutely, 100%. Dr. Peggy McCall says it best, like, what would you love? What would you love? What would you love? She embeds it
Yes.
inside of, my soul. Like, I mean, Peggy McCall, I also have the pleasure of having her as my mother-in-law, and she's helped me so much on this journey, have a better understanding of being able to manifest the things that I desire in my life, and having the worthiness and the belief inside of me that I can truly be anything that I desire to be, that I can truly have anything that I desire to have. And through her helping me as well with these teachings of what would you love and live from the end, that's how I'm doing it. I'm living from the end result, I'm living from the health, I'm living from the focus. And I'll be honest, like, way in the past, like, when she would mention to me, like, you have to stay positive, you have to stay focused. Well, there's a lot of people that are gonna be like, like,
Yeah, yeah,
stop telling
absolutely.
me to stay positive, stop telling me to be
Right.
focused and be happy and be healthy, and stop telling me to do that. And you're allowed, okay? Like, you're allowed to have those moments. 100%, you are allowed to have those moments where it's like you feel it and you're just so frustrated. You're allowed, okay? But what you have to do is that you have to re-put yourself back in alignment. Like, allow yourself to have the moment
Right.
and then throw yourself back into alignment. And it's like, okay, I had a minute, okay, that was it. It's no longer controlling me anymore. And you let it go. And you let it go. And you keep focusing, and then you realign yourself and you tell yourself what you want to do. And that's what you have to do every single day. And that's what Peggy tells me to do every single day, and to live from that. And things just, they manifest in the most beautiful way when
Yeah.
you are able to live from the end result. Like, it's really like that's it. And so, like, I'm grateful for every single thing that I have in my life that I have now, and that moment of gratitude to put yourself there. Like, I think about the other day when I was sitting on the floor with my daughter and we were coloring ceramics together, and, like, what a gift this life is. Like, how grateful I am to be here in this present moment, feeling so good, like my health so good, being able to be present with my children, my son's health being, amazing, and being able to write these stories, and the house that I have and the vehicle that I drive, and the life that I've built. And anybody can have this at their disposal.
Absolutely.
Anybody can have this.
So, last question for you before we take it down to a landing. You turned your pain into purpose. What's your next journey? And how are you continuing to expand your vision of what's possible?
My next journey is, like, I can feel it so deeply within me that I'm here to make an impact on the lives of many, many people. I can't say the how, but I know it's there. Whether it be with my stories, with my books, whether it's the impact that I, make with Peggy, and the impact that we're giving into the world, you know, I have a goal. I can't share it with you yet, because if anybody knows, when a manifestation is so big, when your goal and your desire is so strong, you have to keep it within you and live that it's already done. But you can't share it with everybody yet, because you have to keep it so deeply tight within you, and the actionable steps are unfolding in front of me. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, so Gigi knows one of my favorite numbers is 22, and I see 222 everywhere, 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 everywhere. And I started telling people I see 222 everywhere, and it's really about, like, trusting the process, and believing in it, and knowing that you're headed in the right direction. And I even have a little necklace here that says 222 on it. And I know that the direction that I am headed right now is the one that I need to be on. The purpose that I'm doing is the one that I need to be on. And it's starting with something as simple as, like, my next children's book is going to be launching July 22nd.
Can't wait. Congratulations. Ooh, I'm so excited.
Thank you, thank you, but there's other things in the mix right now. But if there's something that I genuinely believe, is that I'm here to make a big impact in this world and help, hundreds of thousands of people believe that they can do anything that they desire to do, to help children understand that they can be anything that they desire to be, and that it starts with a foundation of giving them the space to do it, allowing people to be creative, allowing them to be imaginative, allowing them to feel their purpose driven within from a young age, and not squishing their ideas, but really letting them be vibrantly and beautifully themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can reach me at my email. They can reach Kayla@peggymccall.com. You can go to my website, which is whatamesskid.com.
So beautiful.
You're more than welcome to go to my Instagram page, which is Kayla Leon author. And you can go have a look at all the wonderful things that I'm going to be doing, that I'm doing right now. And honestly, like, that's how you can reach me. So feel free to contact me at any time. I'd love to talk.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and for really sparking change in this world. You're doing fabulous. And I'm glad to be part of your journey. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone. Thank you, Kayla, for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.